දැන් මාස 25ක ස්ථාවර තැන්පතු සඳහා 10.75ක අසම සම පොලියක් LB යසෙසුරු.
Tonight, on First at 9 this Saturday the 14th of February 2026. Black, white and red. 10 police teams to probe the cold-blooded murder of an attorney and his wife. Bar Association to convene an emergency meeting tomorrow. Further calls for the immediate apprehension of the perpetrators. Despite Ditwa, Sri Lanka's economy emerged resilient despite Cyclone Ditwa's devastations, asserts the central bank. Economic growth projected at 4 to 5% this year. To be or not to be? CEB requests tariff hike of 13.56%, citing estimated financial loss of 15 billion rupees. Vibrant visions. Will expand export revenue to $36 billion by 2030, vows the government. 10% average annual export growth required, reveals Minister of Industries.
Kalin baby so rupial anuwakata. Kalin baby podi hamotamai.
This is Derana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to First at 9 on the Derana News channel. I'm Aditya Singh joining you live with the latest in Sri Lanka and around the world. Brought to you by the only Sri Lankan media network to rise to the pinnacle across all media platforms. Recognized as the best by every survey and beloved by the people. Now, in your top story tonight, 10 police teams comprising officers from the Criminal Investigation Department, the Police Special Task Force and the Central Crime Investigation Bureau have been deployed under the instructions of Inspector General of Police Priyantha Veerasurya to investigate the murder of attorney-at-law and his wife in Akuregoda last evening. Police revealed that they had received information on threats allegedly posed to underworld Don Karandini Sudda's legal defense team by rival mob boss Lokupati. Authorities are investigating claims that the shooting may have been orchestrated by Karandini Sudda over an ongoing rivalry between the two gangs.
A shooting at a supermarket parking lot in Akuregoda, Thalangama at around 5 p.m. yesterday claimed the life of an attorney-at-law along with his wives. According to police, the gunmen who arrived at the scene by car confronted the couple as they were attempting to leave the supermarket car park. CCTV cameras captured footage of the gunmen exiting their vehicle and approaching the attorney's vehicle. The suspects then opened fire at the couple who were seated in front using a pistol and a T-56 type firearm. Police revealed that 6 rounds of T-56 ammunition and 2 rounds of pistol ammunition were fired during the course of the shooting. CCTV footage also captured the suspects fleeing the scene towards the Mala Bay. Police revealed that the getaway vehicle was later seen colliding with a motorcycle at the Friday Fair junction in Kottava. The fake license plate of the car which came off during the collision was later recovered by the police. Investigations are underway to determine the subsequent route taken by the suspects. The deceased have been identified as 44-year-old attorney-at-law Buddhika Mallavarachi of Aturugiriya and his 42-year-old wife W.A. Nisansala. According to sources, the deceased attorney-at-law has had an extensive criminal practice spanning 5 years. According to the police, the deceased attorney-at-law represented several suspects accused of criminal offences, including Jayalat Silva alias Karandaniya Sudda and later his rival Sujeevaruwan Kumara alias Lokupati. The attorney had yesterday appeared at the Kaduwala Magistrates Court defending Lokupati, who stands accused of Club Vasanta's murder. Police suspect that the shooting may be linked to ongoing rivalries within the underworld. Authorities suspect Karandaniya Sudda may have ordered the murder of the attorney over concerns of certain privileged information being disclosed to Lokupati. The police also revealed that they were tipped off about threats posed to Karandaniya Sudda's legal team by Lokupati. Meanwhile, police are seeking public assistance to identify the suspects. Investigators revealed that the suspect's vehicle had travelled through Homagama, Potuarava Road, Aturugiriya, Kottawa and Makumbura. Police believe that vehicles travelling in those areas may have captured dashcam footage of the suspect vehicle bearing the license plate number EPKI 7738. Members of the public with relevant dashcam footage are urged to contact the Deputy Inspector General in charge of the Western Province South Division on 071 859 8008 or the Director of the Western Province North Crimes Division on 071 859 2279. In response to the incident, Inspector General of Police Priyanthavira Surya has deployed 10 police teams comprising officers from the Criminal Investigation Department, the Police Special Task Force and the Central Crime Investigation Bureau. Investigations are being carried out under the supervision of the Deputy Inspector General of Police for the Western Province South Division, Samantha Wijayasekara.
Central Finance Youth Aduwatawa.
Now, the Bar Association of Sri Lanka will convene an emergency general meeting of all its members tomorrow, marking the first such meeting in 14 years. The president of the Bar Association of Sri Lanka, Rajiv Amrasurya, condemned the tragic murder and called for the immediate apprehension of the perpetrators.
Last evening we issued a media statement condemning this incident, this brutal act unconditionally. So this is a matter which affects the very fabric of our legal system, and we decided that we will call for a meeting of the entire membership tomorrow at 3 p.m. and we will discuss this matter and decide collectively what action we must take. This is an attack not only on our legal system, on every citizen. There is a constitutional guarantee to any suspect, anyone accused of any crime, of legal representation, and that is how the legal system, not only in Sri Lanka, in everywhere across the democratic world, operates. And whether a lawyer appears for X, Y or Z is not relevant. We have already called upon the police, the law enforcement and the state to take maximum measure to apprehend the perpetrators, bring them before justice. That is a responsibility of the state. We simply cannot have recurrence of this. The last time we called for a meeting of the entire membership was in 2012 during the period of the impeachment of the then Chief Justice Shirani Bandaranayake. For the last 14 years we have not had a need to call for a meeting of the membership. We have also seen certain media giving certain narratives as to the reason why this has happened. I ask you the question, can there be a reason why someone has been shot and killed? That goes against the very grain of our system, of our country, of our ethic, and that must be also condemned in the highest possible terms. The media also must be responsible in relaying that information. My request also is to the government, to the police and law enforcement to please mobilize all the resources you have. The suspects can and should be apprehended, not within days and weeks, but within hours. We will be closely monitoring the progress of the investigations. අපි හිත තීරණ ගන්නවා. නමුත් අපි ව්‍යවස්ථානුකූලවත් වැඩ කරන්න ඕන. අපේ ව්‍යවස්ථාවත් රටේ ව්‍යවස්ථාවත් අනුව. ඒ වෙලාවේ අපේ තීරණ අරන් කියන්න. කරන් දෙන සුද්ධ කියන එක තමයි ගොඩක් වෙලේ තියෙනවා. ඒවා සපයලා තියෙනවා. ඒකට අනිත් පාර්ශ්වයටත් තොරතුරු දීලා සේවාව මෙහෙම කරලා සාධාරණ දෙයක් නැති. දැන් ඒක අපි කොහොමද දන්නේ?
On what basis can the accuracy of such claims be established? How can one reasonably arrive at such a conclusion? The media appears to be raising these questions solely based on a statement made by an individual which is ethically questionable. The responsibility of uncovering and disclosing the truth rests with the legal system and the relevant investigative authorities. We strongly condemn this murder which took place in broad daylight.
Now, condemning the brutal double murder of an attorney and his wife in Akuregoda, opposition leader Sajith Premadasa raised concern on the state of law and order in the country and challenged the government's assertion that the underworld has been dismantled. The opposition leader raised these concerns and questions in Hambantota today.
Opposition leader Sajith Premadasa met with farmers of the Beralihela village in Hambantota to discuss their concerns.
The head of an institution responsible for national security recently claimed that concerns regarding national security could be resolved within 2 weeks and even advised others to learn from him. Yet yesterday, a lawyer and his wife were shot dead by the side of the road. Is this the state of law and order in the country? A cold and violent war appears to have erupted among rival underworld gangs. A wave of murders have overrun society. When shootings occur, authorities claim they are a result of underworld rivalries. However, simultaneously, we see reports of the underworld being dismantled being telecast on the news. What does that mean? Our people must be guaranteed the freedom to walk safely at any time of the day. Today that freedom has been taken away. However, members of the government appear to enjoy the freedom to mislead the public around the clock.
අද නිදහස තියෙන්නේ ආණ්ඩු පාර්ශවයේ සමාජිකින්ට 24 පැයම 365 දවසෙම බොරු කියන්න නිදහස නැති.
The double murder in Akuregoda yesterday and the recent conviction of 12 accused of former MP Amarakirti Athukorala's murder gripped the political limelight today.
The developments that occurred in the evening on the 9th of May came directly off the back of what happened in the morning of the same day. However, the government that came to power through this development pulled up the ladder behind them rather ungratefully. They attempt to pass oppressive laws, ungratefully forgetting recent history. This government came to power off the Aragalaya. The government must take steps to probe the Aragalaya by way of a presidential commission of inquiry or otherwise. Through such measures, the government must take a political decision. They are not taking that decision at the moment. The government has deceived all those engaged in the people's struggle back then. We never had a problem acknowledging our role in leading the Aragalaya, nor do we have one now. We will continue to lead it. The murder in question was a direct result of hatred that was incited within the temple trees that day. Therefore, many who are directly responsible for the murder are still out and about. We are ready to enforce the law against them. The Rajapakshas back then had government power behind them. They could have misused it too. However, we did not. While Bangladesh, Nepal and Indonesia deployed military might to quell protests at the expense of young lives, then President Gotabaya Rajapaksa took a step back to save the youth. Those who used the youth for bait in their pursuit of power now level allegations at us. Some representing the government did not stop at their criticism of the judicial decision. They went on to justify cold-blooded murder. They seem to think that a murder convict is entitled to the presidential pardon. A request seeking the presidential pardon for the convict has already been made by some. I too am of the opinion that they must be pardoned. I too am responsible over this matter. That is because I supported the people's uprising. I continue to endorse that uprising. If Nirmal Devasiri thinks the convicts must be pardoned, he must be of the opinion that the convicts are not guilty. Therefore, he thinks that the judiciary is mistaken. His remarks are in contempt of court, and so a suit of law can be brought against him. Dr. Nirmal and some others spread hate. He says he supported the uprising and that he continues to endorse it. Nirmal Devasiri must also be handed down the capital punishment since he spread so much hate and anger. We are of the opinion that he must be marched down to the gallows as the 13th convict. The underworld might not attach much value to the loss of life since their livelihood is one that justifies claiming lives for selfish needs. However, everyone injured, maimed, murdered and hurt by gunfire has the same right to live that President Disanayake enjoys. Therefore, the government must respect the right to life. Public security has collapsed to such a degree that an officer of court was gunned down in broad daylight. If this is how safe attorneys are, what does that say about the safety of the general public? This is a severe concern. The government launched an initiative called Quit. They ordered all drug traffickers and underworld gunmen to quit. However, the general public and the security forces have now been forced to quit at the moment. Underworld gunmen today attack high security zones, which are usually military strongholds. They attempt to embarrass the military.
Welcome back. Now taking you to economic updates. The Central Bank of Sri Lanka claims that Sri Lanka depicted resilient economic growth in 2025 despite desperation brought upon the nation towards the end of the year in the aftermath of Cyclone Ditwa. In its monetary policy report for February this year, the financial regulator further highlights that economic growth for 2026 is currently projected to be in the range between 4% to 5%, continuing the growth momentum recorded in the previous 2 years, adding that growth is expected to remain modest over the medium term.
In its monetary policy report for February 2026, the Central Bank of Sri Lanka notes that Sri Lanka's macroeconomic stability continued to strengthen in 2025, alongside notable progress in implementing critical structural and policy reforms. The central bank highlighted that although the year was marked by both severe domestic and global shocks, the economy demonstrated resilience, underscoring the effectiveness of decisive measures to strengthen policy buffers and the meaningful progress achieved in restoring stability and reinforcing economic fundamentals. The report underscored that marking the end of an 11-month deflationary phase, inflation turned positive in August 2025. Thereafter, inflation accelerated only gradually and remained unchanged for 3 consecutive months through October to December 2025. Despite temporary supply chain disruptions caused by Cyclone Ditwa, which placed some upward pressure on food prices in December, overall inflation remained stable. The central bank noted that inflation is projected to accelerate gradually and is expected to move towards the 5% target by the second half of 2026. The increasing trajectory was broadly attributed to the gradual recovery in demand conditions. While both upside and downside risks to the inflation outlook remain, the overall balance of risks is assessed to be broadly neutral over the near and medium term. The Central Bank of Sri Lanka continued its accommodative monetary policy stance in 2025 and thus far in 2026. Since the reduction of the overnight policy rate by 25 basis points in May 2025 to 7.75%, the policy interest rate was maintained at the same level. The continuation of this policy stance was largely supported by the persistence of low inflation and the benign inflation outlook in the context of a gradual recovery of overall demand. Meanwhile, economy growth for 2026 is currently projected to be in the range of 4% to 5%, continuing the growth momentum recorded in the previous 2 years. The CBSL noted that growth is expected to remain modest over the medium term. However, prospects are subject to considerable uncertainty due to the volatile global geopolitical environment and any possible positive spillovers from the ongoing structural reforms in the economy. Downside risks to growth projections in the near to medium term could arise due to global trade frictions and elevated geopolitical uncertainty, which may negatively affect growth in key trading partners and major tourism source markets.
Now, the Ceylon Electricity Board has requested an electricity tariff increase of 13.56% for the period effective from the 1st of April to the end of June. The CEB estimates a deficit of 15 billion rupees for the period from April to June this year, requiring a tariff increase of 13.56%.
The Ceylon Electricity Board has submitted a proposal to the Public Utilities Commission of Sri Lanka seeking approval for a 13.56% increase in electricity tariffs for the second quarter of 2026. According to the Commission, the proposed revision applies to the period from the 1st of April to June 30, 2026. Upon reviewing the submission, the Commission indicated that it will initiate a process to obtain public views before announcing its final decision on the proposed tariff adjustment. Earlier, although the Electricity Board sought an 11.57% tariff increase for the first quarter of 2026, that request was not approved by the Commission. Owing to the failure to submit a formal revision proposal within the stipulated time frame, the Commission decided against revising tariffs for that quarter and instructed the board to submit its proposal for the second quarter of 2026 within the required deadline. In its latest submission, the Electricity Board has outlined the rationale for the proposed revision. It estimates a financial loss of 15,847 million rupees for the second quarter of 2026 and has proposed the 13.56 tariff increase to offset this deficit. The proposal also takes into consideration data from the Department of Meteorology. Additionally, an allocation of 1,518 million rupees has been incorporated into the proposed revision to cover employee gratuity payments. Further, the Electricity Board noted that annual maintenance activities are scheduled at the power stations located at the Randaniyagala Dam, Victoria Dam, Samanala Dam and Bovathana Dam reservoirs, as well as the Keravalapitia power station.
Managing Director of the International Monetary Fund, Kristalina Georgieva, is scheduled to pay a visit to the island next week. Confirming her visit, a top IMF official noted that her visit will span from the 16th to the 18th of this month. During a visit, the IMF Managing Director will meet with government authorities and key stakeholders and also observe firsthand the impact of Cyclone Ditwa on the nation. She is also expected to discuss ways in which the IMF can support recovery efforts and contribute to building a more resilient future for all Sri Lankans. President Anukumara Dissanayake is slated to attend the India AI Impact Summit 2026 in New Delhi. The summit is scheduled to be held from the 16th to the 20th of February. The India AI Impact Summit 20 brings together global leaders, policymakers, innovators and experts from across the world to deliberate on the way forward for artificial intelligence. According to the Indian High Commission in Colombo, the summit is anchored in 3 sutras: People, Planet and Progress, which define India's approach to international cooperation on AI. At the invitation of Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, several world leaders are scheduled to participate in the summit, including heads of states of Brazil, France, Serbia, Slovakia, Spain and Switzerland. Ministerial delegations from over 45 countries, the UN Secretary General and senior officials from several international organizations will also join the deliberations. Welcome back. Now in your business news, Minister of Industry and Entrepreneurship Development Sunil Handunethi reveals plans of increasing the country's export revenue to $36 billion by the year 2030. Speaking at an event yesterday, the minister disclosed that to attain this export target, Sri Lanka must sustain an average annual export growth rate of 10%.
The 33rd NCE Exporters Awards, organised by the National Chamber of Exporters to recognise achievers of country's export sector, was held last night in Colombo. The event was graced by the Minister of Industry and Entrepreneurship Development Sunil Handunethi.
We intend to drive our export economy to reach $36 billion by 2030. This objective remains well within reach, provided we systematically address and eliminate the structural challenges and persistent barriers. As a government, our ministry has made it a priority to implement decisive measures aimed at removing these constraints. In pursuit of this goal, we are actively engaging coordinated discussions with relevant ministries. Safeguarding and empowering local manufacturers is fundamental to achieving our export ambitions. They must be strengthened, and unnecessary impediments that obstruct their growth must be decisively removed. Following consultations with the Minister of Finance today, we presented the National Tariff Policy to the Cabinet of Ministers. This policy framework is intended to ease the burdens faced by domestic manufacturers. We hail this as a huge achievement. Through these reforms, we aim to cultivate a more conducive and competitive environment for local industries. To attain the export target of $36 billion by 2030, Sri Lanka must sustain an average annual export growth rate of 10%. In support of this objective, export officers across the country have undergone comprehensive training to enhance the efficiency and quality of their services. Further, we are implementing plans to decentralize development efforts, expanding economic growth beyond Colombo to all regions of the island. Our ultimate aspiration is to establish a resilient and self-reliant economy that is free from excessive borrowing and undue external influence.
Sri Lanka recorded a staggering 400,000 plus tourist arrivals since the beginning of 2026 up until the 12th of February. Out of the figure, some 124,000 arrivals were recorded from the 1st to the 12th of February alone.
124,460 tourists touched down from the 1st to the 12th of February, bringing the total number of tourists who arrived in Sri Lanka to 401,787. According to the latest weekly report issued by the Sri Lanka Tourism Development Authority, the highest number of daily tourist arrivals were recorded on the 12th of February, amounting to 12,731. India remained first in the list of top source markets during the period, recording a total of 18,000 2,819 arrivals. India accounted for 15% of total arrivals from the 1st to the 12th of February. Trailing behind India was the United Kingdom, recording 14,513 arrivals. Germany came in third with a total of 10,556 tourist arrivals to Sri Lanka during the period. Germany was followed by the Russian Federation, China, France, Australia, Poland, the United States and the Netherlands. Other nations from across the world accounted for 32% of total arrivals during the period. A total of 240,217 tourist arrivals were recorded in February last year, whereas the overall number of tourist arrivals during the year was 2,362,521.
Now in your world news, President Donald Trump said that a change in power in Iran would be the best thing that could happen as the US administration weighs whether to take military action against Tehran. Trump made the comments shortly after visiting with troops at Fort Bragg, North Carolina, and after he confirmed earlier in the day that he is deploying a second aircraft carrier group to the Middle East. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who traveled to Washington this week for talks with Trump, has been pressing for any deal to include steps to neutralize Iran's ballistic missile program and end its funding for proxy groups such as Hamas and Hezbollah. Iran has insisted its nuclear program is for peaceful purposes. Trump's comments advocating for a potential end to Ayatollah Ali Khamenei's rule come just weeks after Secretary of State Marco Rubio said a potential change in power in Iran would be far more complex than the administration's recent efforts to oust Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro from power. That's all the news we have for you tonight. Thank you. Have a great night.